Good morning, folks. It is 10 o'clock. It's time for our yoga session. So just give you a moment or two to join in. I hope you guys are all well today. The sun appears to be coming back, at least in Bristol. I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's been a tough couple of days of rain when we've been used to this nice weather for getting out and about. Morning there, how are you? Give us a thumbs up if you're doing all right. Thank you for joining. So today we are going to be playing around with our balance a little bit, so quite a lot of standing stuff. So please take shoes and socks off so that you're playing with your nice bare feet. A couple of things that you might need, which I didn't put in the previous post, sorry, is some kind of low table or chair. So I'm just using like a little toddler chair here, but we're just going to use it for a balance exercise a little bit later on. So a normal chair would be fine as well, and you would just use the seat. And some of you might have a wobble cushion, but that's probably really obscure. But if you have one, grab it. And if not, grab yourself a cushion. The squidgier, the better. So really nice thick cushion would be fantastic. And it's not going to be for resting on. We're going to have fun with this. Okay, so we've got a few of us online. Brilliant. So we will get started. So bring yourself into a standing position. Feet about hip width apart. And just take a few moments to find your centre of balance. So that might mean just adjusting and shifting your weight around a little bit. Okay, so now you've found your centre, I want to knock you off centre a little bit. So to begin with, how does your balance feel if you lift all of your toes up? Whoop, whoop, whoop. Do you start to feel a little bit wobbly? Just notice that. And also start to pay attention to your breathing. So closing the mouth, breathing in and out through the nose, popping those toes back down. And do you notice the sensation of feeling a little bit more grounded, especially when we press the big toe down? Okay, so next is to just start shifting our weight around. So how would it feel if you shifted your weight really far back onto your heels? Ooh, okay, so drops us off balance. How does it feel as you start to shift your weight forwards? Ooh. And as you do that, just notice what's happening with your breathing. Is there some holding of breath going on? Is the breathing quickening? Quite often we hold the breath waiting for the fall. Okay, so just playing around with that. Okay, how about from side to side then? So as you shift your weight from side to side, so we're not coming into a true balance, we're just shifting the weight around. Okay, so generally we're quite used to sort of shifting from side to side, so that's probably quite comfortable for you. But as we start to add the arms into this a little bit, so that as you go over, you've got quite a lot more weight on one side than the other, and this can end up being quite a nice stretch. So as you shift your weight into one side, taking that hand over, opening up through this side of the body, just keeping the breath flowing. And then again, shifting the weight over, taking the arm over. How does that feel? So we've got a lot more weight. We're shifting off balance here. How does it affect your breathing? And coming back to a central position. Okay, so now if we start to twist and change that movement, notice what's happening with your feet. So do your toes scrunch up to try and keep balance, just paying attention to what's happening. Where do you feel the weight shifting in your feet? Do you feel muscles working in the feet? Is that movement creating arches in your feet? So just paying attention, and actually we can start to move this around a little bit and really start to make it quite playful. So just paying attention to your breath and whether it changes as you shift yourself in and out of different balances. And do you notice holding your breath? So you see, you can do this in virtual yoga classes because no one's watching. And not only is it just a nice way of observing your balance, we're also opening up the body this morning. So how lovely does that feel? So just opening up, stretching in whatever way feels good for you. Just moving, breathing, and noticing what's working in the body, what's falling out of balance, what's coming into a sense of groundedness. Then take a sigh and relax. Okay, so that's a nice little warm up and opening up for the body. So now we're going to play around with some little bit more static balance. So quite often we're used to coming into a balance in a yoga class where you're grounding into one foot and you're lifting one leg up, which tends to be reasonably easy for us because the hip flexion is something that we're used to doing because we sit a lot. So I invite you now to play around with balance where you're taking your leg back and trying to keep the pelvis still facing forward, so there's no twist in the pelvis, but also that the lower back stays relaxed. So we don't want to get the leg back by creating an arch in the back. So for some of you, this may be a really small movement, and that's fine, as long as it's a balance, so as long as you've got your foot off the floor. So steady breath here. Okay, so let's play around with this a little bit more. So from taking that foot, the leg back, let's play around with taking it out to the side. So steady breath here. And what I love about balancing is that it forces us to pay attention. You can't really think about anything else while you're balancing, huh? Okay, so from there, we can then start to see if we can take the foot into a traditional tree pose. So that could either be placing the heel into the inside of the thigh, it could be just resting the foot alongside the lower leg, or it may just be resting the toes on the ankle, whatever works for you. But for any of those variations, just make sure that the pelvis stays facing forwards, because often what we tend to see with the knee in this position is that somebody thinks, well, okay, in the tree I want my knee to be directly out to the side. So they twist the pelvis, which is obviously destabilising, because I found that quite difficult. So the stability comes in the pelvis being level and the glutes being involved and the feet being involved. So there is power, energy in the foot, powering and supporting this balance all the way up the leg. So once you've got this lower portion in position, what happens when you move your hands? So quite often hands down here helps. If you're really wobbly, arms out to the sides can be quite good. But what happens if you take the arms up? Can that be quite destabilising for you? And what happens now if you take both of the arms over to one side? Ooh. So let's try and destabilise our tree, because this is where in challenging our tree where we really can play around with our balance. If you're used to doing tree in a yoga class, let's mess it up a little bit. Okay, so let's release that leg. Woo! Bring that leg down and give the standing leg a good rest and a good shake. Okay, so we'll do the same on the other side. So again, just find that sense of groundedness through the standing leg. But first of all, what we're going to do is take the leg back. So from this angle, this time again, my pelvis is level and I'm observing that I've got a nice relaxation in the lower back. And I also want to see that when I do take my leg back, it's going back parallel so that it's not doing something like this or something like this. So it's quite good to do something like this in front of a mirror. So balancing just by bringing the leg and the hip into a little bit of extension. And then you can play around with taking the leg out to the side. Again, how's the breathing? And the nice thing about doing this in front of a mirror is you can see how your body is so intelligent at re-stabilising itself all of the time. So wobbling and moving imbalances is totally fine. It's what the body is supposed to do. So bringing ourselves into our tree, either the heel into the thigh, into the lower leg, toes around the ankle, whatever works for you, but just keep the pelvis facing forward. There's no need to force the knee out to the side. And again, you can play around with the hand position. So this is quite common, but can be really challenging. It might actually be easier to have your arms by the side. Again, up overhead can be quite challenging. But you can also play around with more weight on one side. How is the body reacting and needing to re-stabilise itself? So just like a tree moves in the wind, you can play around here. Don't need to keep your trees stable. And of course, falling out is all part of the process. So it's absolutely fine to wobble and to fall out of your tree. There we go. So give those legs a shake. Nice bit of work there. You will probably feel this session later on today. Okay, so if you were able to grab a low coffee table or a chair of some sort, you're going to use that for the next playing position. So we're going to come into what's known as a warrior 3. So using whatever height of support you need. So I'm using just the sort of the top of the chair here, which lines up roughly with just above my knee, but you can play around with what works for you. And we're going to take the leg back. Now, hopefully you can see from this view that when I take my leg back, it is going straight back. So what you want to do is to look down and see that the leg is going straight back. You want to avoid this, or what's more common is kind of a, do like this, a sort of a tilting position like this. So see, in this position, because you've got the support, you could look down and look back and see that your leg is going straight back. And from there, you could come a bit lower. Steady breathing. Observe what's going on with the breath. Feeling the work that the glute is needing to do in both legs, really. One for stability and one for maintaining that leg lift. And from here we can then play around with adjusting the position. So rather than facing down, can you now start to turn to look towards the side and perhaps even bring one hand onto the hip, but keep that back leg lifted. Oops. then coming back, looking back down to the floor, and then releasing and giving those legs a shake. So I'll just shift the angle a little bit just so you can see on the other side. So again, taking this leg back. So this is a supported warrior 3 position, lifting the back leg, just trying to maintain a level pelvis. So when I look back, my leg is traveling straight back behind me. It's not going out to the side or like this or any kind of tilting of the pelvis. Steady breath. And then from here we could play around with whether we can tilt out to the side. So really good work here for the muscles supporting the pelvis. And nice and slowly, trying not to fall out of it, facing back down towards the floor. Whoo! Before you come down and release. Again, give me a shake. So, how are you guys doing? Hope you're staying with me. I can start to feel this now in and around my hips, so hopefully it is giving you some really nice feedback in terms of strength. Okay, so the next pose we can play around with, we're going to keep both of the feet on the floor, but really narrow our base of support. So bringing your feet together, knees together, thighs, and then think as if you're going to sit on a high chair. So we're coming into what is appropriately known as the chair pose. So it's just about sinking the pelvis down as if you're going to sit on a high chair. And notice what's happening with your feet. So quite often the toes lift. So can you place your toes back on the ground as you come into this? And also it can feel quite challenging with the ankles, the front of the ankles. So this is our chair. Now, for some of us, that may be just a little bit too easy. So if you have got a wobble cushion, this is a really nice playing option. So trying to come into your chair while you maintain your balance on your cushion. Now obviously not everybody has these around the house, so you could stack yourself up 1 or 2 cushions, and the squidgier your cushion, the more of an uneven surface it's going to give you to play around with your chair. So just play around with that at your own time. As many cushions, any kind of unstable surface, basically keeping the feet together and challenging your balance, and let yourself wobble. This is where the muscles are strengthening and the connection between the brain, the feet, the ankles is all being created, maintained through the balancing, through the wobbling. Okay, so last one of the standard poses. So we are going to take a foot off the floor, a little bit like the chair. This time we're going to pop our ankle just above the knee, and then see if you can start to sink back onto that high chair. So I'll just show you from the side. So how low can your chair comfortably be? Do you need to take the arms out to the side? For stability, that's absolutely fine. How would it be if you took the arms overhead or played around with the arms a little bit? Can you maintain that balance? And release. We'll do the same on the other side. So this is really nice for the hips, the piriformis. So a modification of a stretch you can do in a chair. But here we've got an imaginary chair just because it's more fun. So can you sink back into your imaginary chair? How low could your chair be? What happens to your breath? How much could you destabilise yourself and challenge? Woo. Challenge the body, paying attention to what's going on with the breath as you move. And release. Ooh. Okie doke. Hi there, Chris. So, let's wind it down a little bit. Let's come into a little mini balance. So coming down past the imaginary chair until you feel the need to lift the heels, and that's absolutely fine. So now we're just going to balance on the balls of the feet. Knees are together. A nice way of spicing this kind of move up is to close your eyes. And again, you could play around with the arms. Ooh. And then we're going to pop the hands down onto the floor. Lower the knees. Take your knees wide, big toes together. And from here, folding forwards into a child's pose. You can use pillows underneath your head and your torso if that's good, or just rest the forehead on the floor. Feeling your breath in the back body, the gentle expansion of the back ribs as you breathe. And the expansion of the front of the chest and the belly area as you breathe. The breath in, expansion, and a relaxation as you breathe out. And then when you're ready, slowly bringing yourself back up to a kneeling position, giving the arms a little shake, perhaps just stretching up towards the ceiling. And release. And then bring your palms together in front of the heart, in front of your chest, dropping your forehead down to the fingertips. And this is bowing to yourself in gratitude for taking this time out of your busy day to move, to breathe, and to pay attention. Paying attention to yourself. And that is something that you certainly deserve a really big smile inside for you for doing that, for giving yourself that space. So big smile inside for yourself. And as you lift your head and opening your eyes to come back to our little virtual studio, feel free to bring that smile outside as well. So namaste. Thank you very much everyone for joining in. I hope you enjoyed playing around with balance. It is my mission to make balancing a little bit more fun and sexy, because balancing tends to be quite boring. Well, at least people think it is, but I think it's lots of fun. And actually, you may see I've got a balance beam here, which I play with every day during lockdown. So I love balancing. But I've also talking a little bit about balancing today. Actually, if you go over to my Instagram or to my Facebook page, which I'll link underneath this, talking about what balance means to us. And actually, for each of us, balance is completely individual. So balancing with your body is only one way of looking at balance. So check that out, and I will see you again next week. So I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope the sunshine stays. It is in Bristol. I don't know if it's sunny with you, but I very much hope it stays so that you guys can get out running. So thank you very much for joining, and I shall see you next week. Take care. Bye.